Why do you laugh? BYD is trying to compete. Why do you laugh?
Have you seen their car?
Just over 10 years ago, Elon Musk, the billionaire founder of Tesla, laughed at a tiny Chinese company trying to break into the electric car game. Fast forward to today, and BYD has turned into a major player in the EV world. Musk himself even admitted that without tariffs and trade barriers, Chinese electric vehicle companies would pretty much wipe out most competitors.
The Chinese car companies are the most competitive car companies in the world. So I think they will have significant success outside of China, depending on what kind of tariffs or trade barriers are established. Frankly, I think if there are not trade barriers established, they will pretty much demolish most other car companies in the world.
What's even crazier is that Chinese EV makers pulled this off in under 4 years. Back in the day, it took the Japanese automotive industry about 20 years to rise quickly, surpassing the US and become a production leader with up to 13 million cars per year from the 1970s to the 1990s. Japanese brands are still strong globally. But the Chinese car makers did something revolutionary. Instead of trying to compete in the traditional combustion engine market, they went all in on electric vehicles. In less than 4 years, from 2021, when they were barely on the radar, they skyrocketed to the top, making China the country with the most car exports. So how did China rise and dominate in the EV sector? What moves did they make to outcompete all the major car makers in such a short time? That's exactly what we're diving into in this video. But before we spill the details, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on more interesting videos like this one. The government's role in the EV industry. Back in 2015, China rolled out the 10-year Made in China 2025 inches action plan to boost production in key sectors, pushing Chinese brands to the forefront. One of the big focuses was on the NEV, or New Energy Vehicle sector. The government set some ambitious goals. By 2020, they wanted to sell 1 million EVs, with 70% from domestic firms, and by 2025, they aimed for 3 million, with 80% from domestic brands. They also wanted domestic models in the top 10 by 2020, and Chinese OEMs in the top 10 NEV producers by 2025. These were lofty targets, especially since only 50,000 NEVs were sold in 2014. Now, while it's common to criticize governments for incompetence, Beijing really nailed it this time. Domestic Chinese firms have climbed to dominant positions in the local market. Today, 8 out of the top 10 NEV makers in China are domestic, with Tesla and Volkswagen being the only foreign brands in the mix. With their home markets solidly secured, Chinese car makers are now setting their sights on global expansion. There are plenty of reasons why China nailed it in the EV industry: generous government subsidies, tax breaks, procurement contracts, and other policy incentives. But one major strategic move was China's decision to heavily invest in the electric vehicle sector. In the early 2000s, before China fully dived into EVs, its car industry was in a bit of a tough spot. Sure, they were great at manufacturing traditional internal combustion cars, but there weren't any domestic brands that could stand up to the foreign giants dominating the market. China realized they weren't going to beat the US, German, and Japanese automakers when it came to internal combustion engine innovation, and hybrid vehicles where batteries played a secondary role to the gas engine were already Japan's domain, so competing there wasn't a great option either. This pushed the Chinese government to break away from the established tech and pour resources into a whole new field: fully battery-powered cars. EVs also offered China solutions to major issues like severe air pollution and reliance on imported oil, a win-win situation. So the Chinese government started investing in EV technologies as early as 2001. Beijing is really good at focusing resources on industries it wants to grow. Fast forward to today, and Chinese EVs are everywhere. They've become so influential that the US government had to hike import tariffs from 25% to 100% to protect local brands. China dominates the EV supply chain. If you look at the prices for EVs in the United States, you'll notice that they are selling at around $30,000 for the cheapest models. However, if you look at Chinese car makers such as BYD, the cheapest EV model is less than $10,000. This is why Elon Musk said that without trade barriers and tariffs, the Chinese car makers will demolish almost every other brand in the market. But how did the Chinese manage to compete in terms of pricing? Well, the answer is the supply chain. Electric vehicles require a wider range of minerals for their motors and batteries compared to conventional petrol cars. Graphite, copper, nickel, manganese, cobalt, lithium, and rare earths are all important components of an EV. And do you know which country produces the most of these minerals? China dominates the minerals and resources for EV production. China has been the world's primary source of rare earth elements since the late 1990s. Although China's share of global production is down from 92% to 58% in 2020, it is still a major player in the industry. While China doesn't necessarily have the most natural resources for battery materials, it has the majority of the new refinery capacity in the world when it comes to critical components like cobalt, nickel sulfate, lithium hydroxide, and graphite. Not only that, the most important part of an electric vehicle is the battery cells, which can make up about 40% of the cost of a vehicle. And again, CATL and BYD, two Chinese companies, are responsible for manufacturing half of the world's lithium batteries. China's control of the chemical materials is the ultimate control of the sector, which China has clearly pursued for years, well before others even figured that this was something important. By focusing on building a robust supply chain, China has managed to secure a dominant position in the EV industry. This strategic move has given them a significant edge, allowing them to produce high-quality electric vehicles at much lower costs than their international competitors. So while other countries were still grappling with traditional car technologies, China was already setting the stage to become a leader in the electric vehicle market. Many countries are probably looking at China's success with electric vehicles and feeling a bit jealous. But copying China's strategy might not be as easy as it sounds. For the first time, Chinese EV companies feel they have a real shot at expanding beyond China and becoming global brands. Some are already making moves into the European market and even considering the US, despite its crowded market and tricky political climate. Chinese gas-powered cars never had this kind of opportunity. However, with the current geopolitical situation, these companies are taking a risk by entering countries that don't have the best relationship with China. Some of these countries might want to protect their own car industries, and others might even see Chinese brands as a security threat. So, do you think Chinese cars pose a national security risk? And do you think Biden's 100% tariff hike will protect the American auto industry? Share your thoughts and leave your comments below. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more interesting videos.